Now here is the risk that Brown had to take with I love you, Cleveland, and I love you, Ohio, and a very special welcome to our special Super Bowl version of Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. See it there, Big Play. And my partner, of course, is Ryan Smith. How are you, Ryan? It's a special show today.
It sure is. Very excited for the big game coming up, big Super Bowl here, LIX, and I'm ready to hear all the facts that I know you've dug up in this last week.
Well, we have really done a lot of research for the game and, of course, the history of the Super Bowl. Mark Lawrence will be joining us a little bit later to handicap the game for us. Before I get into all of it, I do want to address the Myles Garrett request for a trade. Do you blame him? Do you? How can anybody blame him? And I'm surprised Batonio, who spoke out quite a few weeks ago, same thing. I'm surprised he hasn't followed Garrett and requested a trade. And what have I been saying about the Deshaun Watson signing if it's a failure? And again, I want to qualify, I favored it. I was in favor of it because of the Mayfield. I'm not a believer that Mayfield is the guy, but that's neither here nor there. I said that if it's a failure, it'll set the franchise back at least 5 years, at least. Maybe Garrett was listening, and maybe he realized. But also, besides that, I mean, what did I say, Ryan, before the trade deadline?
You said to trade him.
Why not get as much as you can for these guys while you can? So now the heat is on. Now, Barry says he's not going to trade him. But do you have a comment on this, Ryan, before we get into our Super Bowl coverage? Because I can't blame Myles Garrett one iota. This franchise is in trouble for the next few years. Who's the quarterback?
Yeah, Bruce, I'm skipping all the stages of grief and I'm going straight to acceptance because I saw something of this nature coming, unfortunately. And if you're Andrew Berry, now the excuses for you to still be employed are very, very far and few between. If you're Andrew Berry, you've now been the GM for two just absolutely devastating moves in the Cleveland Browns franchise since returning to 99. That's first and foremost, of course, trading for Deshaun Watson, giving him the guaranteed money, as well as trading the picks to Houston. And then second, now your best player that you've had since 99 and arguably maybe already the second greatest Brown ever outside of course, Jim Brown. Wasn't there to see them, but that's my opinion. He's now requested a trade to get out of the city of Cleveland, so not a great look for Andrew Berry, Bruce.
Let me get to our Super Bowl coverage. We'll have more on this, of course, next week in more detail, more speculation, more opinion. History of the Super Bowl. Lamar Hunt was the founder of the old American Football League. He was also the founder of the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City was, of course, the first American Football League team to represent that renegade league against the NFL champion Green Bay Packers. And, of course, Lamar Hunt. How did we get the name Super Bowl? Let me tell you. Lamar Hunt's son was playing with a toy. The toy was called Super Bowl. So Hunt went to then NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle and said, we should call this first matchup, we should call it the Super Bowl. Rozelle kind of liked the idea, but the ownership of the NFL said, no. We're going to call this the AFL NFL championship game. And by the time of the third Super Bowl in 1970, it was adopted. It was adopted as the Super Bowl. That's how it came about. Now, before the NFL-AFL merger in 1970, the very first Super Bowl was between the NFL champion Green Bay Packers and AFL champion Kansas City Chiefs. Green Bay killed them 35-10. After Green Bay mauled the AFL's representative the next year, the Oakland Raiders, the NFL hierarchy laughed and mocked the AFL as not being competitive or even worthy of being incorporated into the same league. But then a guy by the name of Joe Namath boasted and bragged before that third matchup, saying his New York Jets were going to beat the invincible Baltimore Colts. What happened? They did. 16-7. But the NFL, even though they were humbled, they used as an excuse, this was a fluke. It was a fluke. However, the very next year, Hank Stram, Len Dawson, and his Kansas City Chiefs, who lost that first game to Green Bay, played the invincible Minnesota Vikings and trounced them. 23-7, Bud Grant's team went down. Purple People Leaders defense. That forced the NFL to merge with the AFL and welcome all of these so-called inferior teams after the Chiefs won that game. After that, Dallas defeated Miami 14-3, Roger Staubach and Tom Landry. Then in 1973, Miami came back after losing to Dallas and won back-to-back championships, including an undefeated season under Don Shula, with Bob Greasy as the quarterback. And George Allen's Washington Redskins were defeated with that defense of all old veterans. 1975 was the first of two in a row for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bradshaw, Franco Harris, Steel Curtain, Chuck Noll, coach. And then again, after winning in 75 and 76, they did it again in 79 and 80. And the 1979 Super Bowl, won by Pittsburgh 35-31, may still be the best of all time. It was back and forth the entire time. A tremendous, tremendous game. In 1981, Oakland defeated Philadelphia 27-10. And this was the year that Oakland knocked off our Cleveland Browns, the cardiac kids of Sam Bertigliano, Red Ride 88. I will argue to my grave that had we won that game, I think we would have beaten Dick Vermeil's Philadelphia Eagles in that Super Bowl. But Red Right 88. 1982, San Francisco defeated Cincinnati 26-21. This was Montana. Joe Montana, Bill Walsh, and the first of four championships for both of them. 1983, Washington 27, Miami 17. Joe Theismann's Redskins were unbeatable. But the very next year, they played the Raiders, who had moved to Los Angeles early in the season, and they played like a 35-33 game in the nation's capital, extremely tight, extremely close, and they wound up meeting again in the Super Bowl, Washington, the defending champions, and the Raiders killed them. 38-9. The rematch. My buddy Ed Moransky was a lineman on that Raiders team. Of course, the owner of the Lake Club outside of Youngstown, Ohio. Former All-American for Schembechler at Michigan. 1986. Chicago Bears 46, New England 10. Buddy Ryan's defense, Mike Ditka. In my opinion, without question, Dent, Singletary on offense, Walter Payton, Jim McMahon. But that was the greatest defense the NFL has ever seen. In 1987, the New York Giants defeated Denver 39-10. Elway and the Browns, first the drive, then the fumble, and then Denver got annihilated in those two Super Bowls back-to-back. Amazing. And then a couple of years later, they got into the Super Bowl again in 1990 against San Francisco and got defeated for 55-10. New York Giants 20, Buffalo 19. Marv Levy, the first of four losses in a row representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. And that was the game they should have won, the very first one against the New York Giants, that field goal we'll all remember. 93 and 94 was the Dallas Cowboys of Troy Aikman. They won 3 out of 4, first of 2 for Jimmy Johnson, and then Barry Switzer won that third one. 1997, Green Bay 35, New England 21. Brett Favre won his only Super Bowl. 98, Denver, first of 2 back-to-backs, 31-24 over Green Bay, beating Favre. Elway finally winning one and beating Favre. And then the next year, Denver defeated Atlanta 34-19. And they shouldn't have even played Atlanta. Minnesota was the best team in the NFC that year, with Randy Moss, Robert Smith out of Ohio State, Carter, Randall Cunningham. But Dennis Green was the coach and played conservatively going down the stretch, and has cost his team. Everybody the whole season knew Denver and Minnesota were the 2 best teams in the NFL, and we were dreaming of that matchup in the Super Bowl. But because of Green, Minnesota got knocked off. Then in 2000, St. Louis defeated Tennessee 23-17. And I got to tell you, I was working for WTAM radio that year. And we had a panel of on-air talent before the Super Bowl game. It was myself, Mike Trevisano, Mike Snyder, Bob France, Casey Coleman, and we dissected the game. The line, Vegas made the line St. Louis -7 against Tennessee. So at the end of that show, we went around the table and made our predictions. And 2 of the guys picked St. Louis, 2 of the guys took Tennessee, and they came to me last, and I said, look it, Vegas has got this right on target. That line is 7. That's right on target. I can't pick between these 2 teams. And they laughed and they mocked me and they said I was gutless and all of this nonsense. The final score of that game was 7-point differential, 23, right on the number, -7. Right on the number. So I rest my case. Baltimore defeated the New York Giants 34-7 with Ray Lewis and company in 01 and 02. New England, a 20-17 winner over St. Louis, and was the first of 6 championships for Belichick and Brady. 03, Tampa Bay 48, Oakland 21. John Gruden defeated the team he coached the year before, the Raiders. And Bill Callahan had followed Gruden at Oakland, and who would have thought years later he'd be the offensive line coach of the Browns just a season ago. Pittsburgh 21, Seattle 10. That was Cowher's only championship. Indianapolis 29, Chicago 17, and 07. Peyton Manning finally wins one. New York Giants 17, New England 14. Eli Manning, first of only 3 losses for Belichick and Brady, and 2 were against those New York Giants of Eli Manning. In 09, Pittsburgh 27, Arizona 3. That was Tomlin's only Super Bowl championship. New Orleans 31, Indianapolis 17. In 2010, Drew Brees winning his only championship. Green Bay 31, Pittsburgh 25. In 2011, Aaron Rodgers over Tomlin. Seattle 43, Denver 8 in 2014. And that was Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson over Peyton Manning. But then Manning came back the next year and defeated Carolina 24-10 for his 2nd Super Bowl crown. Philadelphia 41, New England 33 in 2018. Nick Foles over Brady. Only he was an honorary captain, and it was the only Super Bowl win for Philadelphia, which we'll get into later. Kansas City 31, San Francisco 20, Mahomes and Reed, their first of 3. Tampa Bay defeated Kansas City 31-9. Tom Brady over Mahomes, the only loss for Kansas City and this group. LA Rams 23, Cincinnati 20, Stafford over Burrow. And then, of course, the last 2 with Kansas City. There you have a little bit of history, Ryan.
Yeah, my knowledge didn't go before the greatest show on turf with LA, or Kurt Warner and crew, St. Louis, I should say. And Bruce, the first Super Bowl I ever truly remember and have like vivid detail is that I think you said it was 07 the Pittsburgh Steelers and Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, and Arizona had no business in that game either. They were a real Cinderella surprise team that by default won the NFC. All right, more of our Super Bowl coverage in a minute here on Bonus Time with Drennan. Big play. We continue with our special version of our Super Bowl coverage on Bonus Time with Drennan. Super Bowl quarterbacks. How about this? Bart Starr of Green Bay, 2-0. Fran Tarkington of Minnesota under Bud Grant, 0-3. Roger Staubach of Dallas, 2-1. Bob Greasy of Miami, 2-1. Jim Kelly of Buffalo, 0-4. All in a row. John Elway of Denver, 2-3. Peyton Manning, Indianapolis and Denver, 2-2. Russell Wilson of Seattle, 1-1. Brett Favre of Green Bay, 1-1. Eli Manning of the New York Giants, 2-0. Troy Aikman of Dallas, 3-0. Terry Bradshaw of Pittsburgh, 4-0. Joe Montana of San Francisco, 4-0. Tom Brady, New England and Tampa Bay, 7-3. And Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City, 3-1. As we all know, the Chiefs are going for their third title in a row. Well, get this. Only 13 times has a team won 3 straight crowns in the NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball combined. In baseball, the New York Yankees won 4 in a row from 36 to 39. The Yankees won 5 in a row from 49 to 53. The Oakland A's won 3 in a row in 72, 73, 74. In the NBA, the Minneapolis Lakers won 3 in a row in 52, 53, and 54. The Boston Celtics won 8 in a row from 59 to 66. Chicago Bulls won 3 in a row, 59, 91, 92, 93. Then they did it again, 96, 97, 98. LA Lakers did it in 2000, 01, and 02. In the NHL, the Toronto Maple Leafs won 3 in a row in 47, 48, and 49. The Montreal Canadiens won 5 in a row from 56 to 60. Toronto again won 3 in a row in 62, 63, 64. Montreal won 4 in a row from 76 to 79. And the New York Islanders won 4 in a row from 80 to 83. But never has an NFL team won 3 or more. As we all know, this is the second Super Bowl in 3 years that these two teams will meet. A bit of history. Before Super Bowl 57, which of course Kansas City won over Philadelphia, the Chiefs and Eagles had only met 9 total times in a span of 51 years. Most recently, Kansas City and Philadelphia met in a Monday night game in Week 11 of the 2023 season, and the Eagles got a little bit of revenge, beating the Chiefs 21-17. And I do mean little, because ask the Buffalo Bills if going 4-0 against Kansas City during the regular season makes them feel any better, considering that they are 0-4 against Kansas City in the playoffs. Prior to the Super Bowl 57 game, Kansas City beat Philadelphia 42-30 in 2021, 27-20 in 2017, and 26-16 in 2013. Overall, Kansas City has a 6-5 record against Philadelphia. That includes a 4-1 record under Andy Reid, who coached the Eagles from 99 to 2012. Kansas City will be making their 7th appearance in the big game. They're 4-2 in the Super Bowl. Mahomes under Reid, 3-1, as I mentioned earlier. And they've beaten San Francisco twice and Philadelphia 2 years ago under Reid. The only loss was to Tom Brady and Tampa Bay. Kansas City is the first team ever to appear in 5 Super Bowls in a 6-season span. Considering this about the Kansas City dynasty, consider this. If the Buffalo Bills did not allow the Chiefs to trade up 17 spots from 27 to 10 in the 2017 draft, Kansas City would not have been in position to draft Patrick Mahomes. New Orleans had the next pick at 11, and then head coach of New Orleans, Sean Payton, said that New Orleans was going to draft Mahomes to be the heir apparent to Drew Brees. And get this, Buffalo's general manager then was Doug Whaley. He was fired the morning after that 2017 draft. And to think Mahomes has been such a nemesis to Buffalo ever since. Mahomes is a 3-time Super Bowl MVP. That's tied all time with Joe Montana. And he has the most passing touchdowns and playoff wins in a 7-season span in NFL history, including the postseason. The Chiefs have won 17 of 20 playoff starts. And last but not least, Mahomes is 7 for 7 on game-tying or go-ahead drive chances in the final minute of the fourth quarter or overtime in his postseason career. Philadelphia Eagles making their 5th Super Bowl appearance. The old NFL franchise first reached the ultimate game in 1980 and got clobbered by the Oakland Raiders 27-10. And as I alluded to earlier, that was the cardiac kids of the Browns. And I believe had we not suffered the Red Ride 88, we would have beaten the Eagles in that Super Bowl. In 2004, the New England Patriots beat Philadelphia 24-21, and in 2022, Eagles lost to the Chiefs. The only Eagles Super Bowl win came in 2017 when they handed Bill Belichick and Tom Brady one of their only 3 losses in Super Bowl history. Any comment on that, Ryan?
Man, that 2017 draft class with Mahomes, actually pretty something special. You know, you got Myles Garrett, of course, going 1 overall. Mitch Trubisky, that didn't work out. Poor Bears. But you mentioned Patrick Mahomes goes at 10, and then just 2 picks later, Bruce, a guy we all unfortunately know a little bit too well here in Cleveland, and that is, of course, Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. All right, here we go. We're going to go to break. We'll come back. More of our Super Bowl coverage. Mark Lawrence also coming up by handicapping the game. That's next on Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Hi, Bruce Drennan here for my good friends out in Benner Nissan. Drove the Nissan Rogue, my wife and I, down here for this wonderful experience in Florida. Can't brag enough about it. Used to have the Murano. Love that too. Check out the all-new 2025 Nissan Kicks, the exclusive intelligent around view monitor. Take advantage of the new Nissan Maintenance Care that, of course, gives you 3 oil changes. It provides the first 2 years, 24,000 miles on qualifying new 2025 Nissan vehicles. And of course, Mentor Nissan been in business for so many years, teaming up now with Infinity of Akron, Infinity of Beechwood. Such a selection for you. Service staff, right on down from the top, of course, Ray Sminchak, the owner, Jamie, he partnered with the Infinity groups. And you're talking about a generation family-owned, operated company, certainly emphasizing and focusing on the high level of customer care and service, pillar in the local community. I have been teamed up with them and proud to be their spokesperson now for several years. I swear by Mentor Nissan and now Infinity of Akron, Infinity of Beechwood. Love them, and you will too. Service department, second to none. They encourage you to come on out and test drive a vehicle. You won't regret it. Go to the website. That's MentorNissan.com. Get more information. MentorNissan.com. I love you, Mentor Nissan. So glad to have you back in a special version of our Super Bowl Bonus Time with Drennan show. Again, next week, we'll dive into this Myles Garrett request for a trade. Concentrate more on the Cavaliers. I got a little bit of the Cavaliers for you before we end today's show, and concentrate to start moving our attention toward baseball, because spring training camps will be opening in both the Cactus and the Grapefruit League down here in Florida, where I've been conducting the shows the last few weeks. All right, continuing with our Super Bowl coverage, Jalen Hurts will try to become the 4th quarterback to win the Super Bowl after losing his first Super Bowl. He would be the first in 27 years since John Elway to do that. The others are Len Dawson of Kansas City, who lost Super Bowl I and then beat Minnesota 3 years later. The other one is Bob Greasy, who lost to Dallas in Super Bowl VI and then came back and won back-to-back Super Bowls, with one of those being an undefeated team, the only one ever. Of course, Elway beat our Cleveland Browns with the drive and the fumble to reach the first 2 Super Bowls for him. He then lost his third when he beat the Browns again and lost in 1990, and he finally wound up winning in 98 against Green Bay and Brett Favre, as I shared with you earlier. Only 8 teams and only 9 times have teams won back-to-back Super Bowls. Kansas City, of course, has tried to become the first to three-peat. The others are Green Bay in the first 2, Don Shula's Miami Dolphins, San Francisco under Bill Walsh, Jimmy Johnson's Dallas Cowboys, Denver with Elway, New England, and Pittsburgh, who, of course, did it twice. These 2 teams have faced 7 common opponents: Atlanta, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, and Tampa Bay. Kansas City is 7-0 straight up against those teams and 5-2 against the spread. Philadelphia is 5-2 straight up against those teams and 5-2 against the spread. Kansas City was 9-2 straight up and 5-1 against the spread against playoff teams that they met this year. Philadelphia was 8-2 straight up and 8-2 against the spread versus playoff teams that they have met this year. Kansas City is the 4th team to reach 3 straight Super Bowls and the first after winning back-to-back Super Bowls. Kansas City head coach Andy Reid spent 14 seasons as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. From 99 to 2012, Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni began his NFL coaching career as an assistant with the Kansas City Chiefs from 2009 to 2012. Since 2004, Kansas City has 18 playoff victories. Philadelphia has 14. Only the New England Patriots have more. Here's what both the Chiefs and the Eagles have in common with Tom Brady, who, by the way, will be in the broadcast booth calling the game on Fox along with play-by-play announcer Kevin Burkhardt. The Eagles handed Brady and head coach Bill Belichick one of their 3 losses in 10 tries in the Super Bowl. That was in 2017. And Kansas City's only loss in this tremendous run with Mahomes and Reid was in 2020, losing 31-9 to Tom Brady when he left New England and led Tampa Bay to the Super Bowl crown. Ryan?
Yeah, which is crazy about that 2017 season when obviously the Eagles, as you mentioned, Nick Foles and company beat the Patriots, was the championship round. It was Brady and Foles, obviously, but then it was like, I think it was Blake Bortles with the Jaguars, if you could believe that, and then Case Keenum with the Vikings. So I think that's a funny note. That's about it, Bruce.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll hear what the expert thinks in handicapping this game. Kansas City -1.5 against Philadelphia for the three-peat. The one and only Mark Lawrence next on Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Well, back with Bonus Time with Drennan, our special version, Super Bowl version of our show here on Big Play Sports Network. It gives me great pleasure to welcome back Mark Lawrence, nationwide known handicapper, playbooksports.com. And congratulations to Mark, who has just been named as an inductee into the Sports Gambling Hall of Fame. Quite an honor, Mark.
Well, thank you very much, Bruce. I figured that maybe they got my test results or my annual physical and figured it's better now than later to wait. So, but I got the word yesterday and it was really, really a pleasant surprise, and I'm quite humbled to say the least.
Absolutely. And it goes decades long and how tremendous you've been, and over the years, your publications and the vast, vast knowledge you have bestowed upon all of us over the years with your publications and your broadcasts. Well, we're upon another Super Bowl here, Mark, and this is a dandy. I was reminiscing earlier in the show about some of the more memorable ones to me. Obviously, that Pittsburgh victory over Dallas when they beat them 35-31, still stands out to me as one of the greatest ever. They just couldn't stop one another. Montana versus Staubach. Another was when the Raiders trounced Washington in 84, 38-9. Washington had won the Super Bowl the year before. And early in that season, if you recall, Mark, Washington and the Raiders played in D.C., and it was a very close game, like 35-33, something like that. Two best teams. And then they met again in the Super Bowl, and the Raiders killed them. Remember that?
Yeah, go figure that. I mean, whoever saw that coming? Unbelievable. But that's what it tells you, though, Bruce. When you get to the biggest stage of the season, anything can happen. All you need to do is get into the party, win a game or two, surprise everybody along the way, and lo and behold, they walk away a Super Bowl winner.
Do you agree with me? The 86 Bears team was the greatest defense we've seen in the NFL ever.
I would have to agree with that. Yes. That was really, really what defenses are all about. Was that Buddy Ryan, was it? Was that his defense?
Yes. Buddy Ryan was defensive coordinator for Ditka. Yes.
Yes. They were really impressive, to say the least, unstoppable almost. I think it was New England. Didn't they trounce them in the Super Bowl that year?
They certainly did. 46-10.
Yes, they did. Right. So, kudos to them. It's been a long time for the Bears since, but nonetheless, they're the standard at which the benchmark at which all defenses in the NFL are all about this year or this time of the year.
Not as long for the Bears as it's been for Cleveland.
Yes. I'm sorry a little bit to hear about what the talk is going on around Myles Garrett, but we'll get to that in another time or point. But I'd be really sorry to see him leave the Cleveland Browns football team. I have to just throw my 2 cents in there.
Yeah, I started the show. I said, how do you blame him? How do you blame him? Well, it brings us upon this matchup. Of course, the Chiefs are trying to make history as the only three-peat ever. It's a very rare, even in the other sports. I went through Major League Baseball, the NBA, and the NHL. It's extremely rare, but no team ever has won 3 in a row in the NFL. But the Chiefs have got their chance. But, Philadelphia didn't have Saquon Barkley a couple of years ago. He's a difference maker. Let's start with your analysis leading up to this big rematch.
Well, what I see here, Bruce, is a lot of what I think Bill Parcells' football was all about. And that was running the football and stopping the run, playing defense. And that's what Philadelphia brings into this football game. The best running team, or best running back, at least anybody can envision to play in a Super Bowl game. Their defense ranks #1 overall in the NFL. Their offense #2. I think you got a real sleeping giant here in Philadelphia, possibly. Look at what Barkley's done in the playoffs here. He's rushed for an average of 185 yards a game. And the other thing that concerns me here, Bruce, is everybody, and I mean everybody that I talk to loves Kansas City. Why not Patrick Mahomes? Why not Andy Reid? And all I'll say to that, Bruce, is I think it was Super Bowl 52. Remember the 18-0 New England Patriots? They took on the New York Giants in that Super Bowl game, and everybody had them penciled in as being a 19-0 first ever type team, and it never happened. And I think Kansas City is going to have to bring their A game here because I know Philadelphia will.
Yeah, I got this from your website. In the postseason, Mahomes is 17-3 straight up, 15-5 against the spread. Hurts is 5-3 straight up, 4-4 against the spread. Mahomes has won 9 straight playoff games, going 8-1 against the spread. Hurts has not thrown a pick in his 8 playoff games, not a one.
Yeah, he's really rather unsung, to say the least. Mahomes gets all the money. He's cashed, won 17 out of 20 playoff appearances, and he's got a quarterback rating of 104.9. It really towers over what Jalen Hurts has done. But this is not all about Jalen Hurts' Philadelphia Eagle football team. It's about running the ball and defense. And I think you're going to find Nick Sirianni asking Jalen Hurts to just command this team. You don't need to win this football game for us. Just orchestrate and be out the football player out there and put the ball in the right hands in this particular contest. One thing I'll say here about Nick Sirianni, as I mentioned that, He's the only coach in the National Football League. He's won more games in his first 4 years of his career than any coach in the NFL ever has. I don't think people give him enough credit for what's going on in Philadelphia right now, and that's what a little bit surprises me here as well.
Yeah, and Kansas City's facing a Philadelphia offense again that did not featured Barkley 2 years ago. So that complement that makes it easier for Hurts to get it to those gifted receivers.
And gifted they are, Bruce. I mean, they're as good as anybody to Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. That's a tandem that Kansas City is going to have to really, really clamp down on, because it's either that or clamp down on Saquon Barkley. Take your choice. There's a lot of weapons here for Philadelphia that they bring into the game. Now, we know Kansas City has their weapons too. And I have to also say this. I kind of get a little bit, my stomach turns into knots watching Kareem Hunt do well for Kansas City after he's a Clevelander, he's been with the Browns and gave him a second try, and all of a sudden he seems to be born again here this year for Kansas City. So tip of the hat to Kareem Hunt, and hopefully maybe he'll get a Super Bowl ring this year as well.
One other observation, I felt it was really quite interesting in the AFC Championship game that they did such a good job on Kelsey, curtailing Kelsey. He only had 2 receptions, but that just tells you the other weapons that Mahomes does possess.
A lot of them. The thing of it to me, Bruce, is if you look back at this year, and I like to use this analogy a lot of if you put tape over the names of the teams and you look at their body of work and just gauge things on that alone, you'd insist that Philadelphia were the favorite in this football game. And, largely because Kansas City's record in one-score football games, they win games, but not impressively. Patrick Mahomes did not have a good year this year. I mean, I know they won games, and I know they're here in the Super Bowl. This was not a vintage year for Patrick Mahomes at all. I think it goes more to Andy Reid and how he prepares a football team. And that's the biggest factor I would have if I'm Philadelphia, giving Andy Reid extra time to prepare for a football game, because we all know how well he does with an extra week of rest.
All right, we've come down to it. Your official prediction for Super Bowl 59, Mark.
Well, I got to go with Bill Parcells in this one, Bruce, here. I like the makeup of this Philadelphia Eagle football team. And we opened the show, talked about Kansas City looking to be the first ever team to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. Well, that's technically true. You can put a little asterisk by that, because before they started the Super Bowl in 1967 and Green Bay won the first 2 Super Bowls, Green Bay also won the final NFL championship game before it all became a Super Bowl.
Right.
So Green Bay really had 3 successive title wins in a row. So is this something that Kansas City will do for the first time ever? Technically, yes. But to me, I think the pressure's all squarely on Kansas City because of this. Give me the better offense, give me the better defense, and give me the points with Philadelphia.
The one and only Mark Lawrence, editor, publisher of the Playbook. Check out playbooksports.com. Mark, it is always a delight. Enjoy this Super Bowl, and we will talk to you next season, hopefully.
Yeah, I look forward to it, Bruce. Enjoy your time in Florida, and tell everybody in Cleveland I said hello.
All right, one and only Mark Lawrence. We'll wrap things up in the Ask Bruce segment next. Bonus time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. All right, our thanks to Mark Lawrence, and he likes Philadelphia as well, Ryan.
Yeah, he does. Listen, I don't want to go against Mark. I'm going to, but trust me, I don't want to, because if there's one man that has won me money in the past, it's been Mark Lawrence. So I'm shaking in my boots headed into this big one.
Listen, I want to give a little love to the Cavaliers, even though last night's game was very disappointing. The 112-105 loss to Boston. Despite the loss, though, the Cavs at 40-10 are still right there for the best record in the NBA. Cavs winning percentages at 800. Oklahoma City's 39-9 record is slightly better percentage at 813. Also, how about the Cavs setting a franchise record with 91 points in the first half, and the Cavs 144-101 win Sunday night at Rocket Mortgage. Cavs outscored Dallas 15-19 in the first quarter alone to improve to a league best 40-9 at the time. Of course, Dallas was without superstar Luka Doncic after being traded to the LA Lakers in that incredibly controversial deal. And former Cav Kyrie Irving didn't play in that game either with a shoulder injury. Irving will now hook up with the newly acquired Anthony Davis. Dallas suited up only 10 players as they are all banged up, but perhaps the biggest injury to the franchise is coming from their fan base for making this very unpopular trade with Los Angeles. All right, Ryan, fire away, buddy. Ask Bruce segment.
All right, we're starting here with a heavy one. Wow. From Andy. Hey, Bruce, do you think Jimmy Haslam is any more liked by the Cleveland faithful than Art Modell?
I think it is growing and growing and growing, Andy. I don't know if it has met the level of animosity that was directed toward Modell when he bolted Cleveland so many years ago for Baltimore, but I think it's got to be getting pretty close considering how dysfunctional this franchise has been, and no matter what they seem to try, yet the fans are incredibly loyal. You've heard me say it time and time again, how I think they are the best of any team in any sport.
All right, well, speaking of the Super Bowl, hey, Bruce, in your opinion, what was the best ever Super Bowl halftime show?
I'm the wrong guy to ask for that. That's the refrigerator break for me. Forget it. If you recall, Ryan, last year on our Super Bowl special, I went through all the halftime shows. Do you remember me doing that last year?
I do remember that.
And it's incredible where originally, Broadway performers like Carol Channing were in the halftime show way back when the Super Bowl first started. And of course, now, Michael Jackson, and this year, this Lamar character and everybody else. So, boy, what a long way. It's come a long, long way. That's for sure.
Already flipping over to college football now, back to Buckeyes. Hey, Bruce, what do you think is the bigger loss for Ohio State this offseason? Offensive coordinator Chip Kelly or defensive coordinator Jim Knowles?
I'm glad you brought that up because Jim Knowles, of course, was stolen away by Penn State. Now offensive coordinator Kelly is bolting for the pros, going with Pete Carroll at Las Vegas. Kelly spent 4 years as head coach at Oregon. He went to the NFL as head coach of Philadelphia in 2013, made one playoff appearance in 3 seasons and kindly asked to leave before going to San Francisco for a year. He went back to college, spent 7 seasons at UCLA, going 35-34 before joining Ohio State. They lose their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. We know that Knowles and Day had a little bit of a thing, but Ohio State's a factory. They'll still survive and be a power.
Alrighty, last one for you, Bruce. Hey, Bruce, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your interest level in NBA All-Star Weekend?
10 being the highest?
Yes.
Is there a minus category?
If you want it to be.
Minus, as many minuses as you can give me. With that being said, let us thank you for joining us on our special version of this Super Bowl bonus time with Drennan Show here on Big Play Sports Network. That's all the time we have for this week's version. We'll wrap things up next week, turn our attention to the Cavaliers, college basketball, Major League Baseball spring training, and I'm Bruce Drennan on behalf of Ryan Smith. Hope you enjoyed the program. Enjoy the Super Bowl. See you next week. Until then, as always, and most importantly, you remember, I love you, Ohio, and I love you, Cleveland.